This is Twit.
Apple is in talks to buy headphone maker Beats Electronics for $3.2 billion, according to an exclusive at the Financial Times. With us to talk about this is Gordon Kelly, who's a tech journalist for Forbes, and also Casey Newton, who's a senior reporter for The Verge. Welcome to both of you, and we'll just jump right in with you, Casey Newton. Can you describe what Apple appears to be buying? What assets does Beat have that Apple might want?
So they have two big things. One is this very popular line of headphones. Beats Music is said to be bringing in $1 billion a year in revenue, and they're bringing it in at a very high profit margin. They can make those headphones for $14 and sell them for $200, which is very consistent with the kind of profit margins that Apple likes to see in its own hardware. The other thing they're buying is a streaming music service. Apple, of course, pioneered the idea of a 99-cent digital download, but over the past few years, more and more people have been shifting away from that and towards services like Spotify and Pandora. Apple historically has not been great at building its own cloud services. With Beats Music, they are buying a kind of a big head start in building something similar to a Spotify.
And hey, Casey, do you think that this is the end for iTunes? Do you think this is the beginning of the end?
I hope it is the beginning of a beautiful renaissance for iTunes, right? Like ever since we started getting streaming services like Spotify, like Pandora, the vision has been something that would integrate with the MP3s that I already have on my hard drive, with any song that I might want to hear at any given moment without me having to sit through an ad the way I would have to do on YouTube. So iTunes is a very messy, complicated product right now, but man, if they could turn it into something that kind of integrated every song ever recorded, I think it could get really exciting.
And, of course, there was a video this morning that emerged showing actor Tyrese Gibson and Dr. Dre bragging about Dr. Dre becoming the first billionaire hip-hop artist. And that was good fun. It seemed to be a Heineken-fueled affair, and it was quickly pulled down, probably because Apple got them on the phone and said, "What the heck, man? What are you doing?" So, Gordon Kelly, you wrote that buying Beats is a huge mistake for Apple. Why did you say that?
I think it's interesting when you break down what Casey was talking about earlier. There's basically two, maybe three theories about why the purchase has been made. One is it's going to buy a brand. It's going to buy a certain amount of coolness, which is stepping outside of Apple's comfort zone for the first time ever. It's never bought a brand, kept that brand, and required that level of coolness. You know, why does Apple need that level of coolness all of a sudden if it isn't doing the job that it should be doing in the first place with its brand and its identity? The second side of that is the streaming music. Now, why does Apple need to pay $3.2 billion just to, in theory, seal the deal with some record labels? If you look at what the likes of Beats did, they paid $10 million for Moog 2 years ago, and that got them the deal. Why are they needing to pay $3.2 million now? Can they not seal the deal anymore? So there's a question here, which is, if you're going to buy a streaming music service for the deals with the record labels, you could have done a cheaper deal with a relative newcomer than Beats with a proportionally small market share. And if you're going to go after headphones, why do you need the brand cool? And secondly, if you just want to make better headphones, Beats, I think we can say pretty uncontroversially, do not make, in terms of quality, the best headphones on the market. You could have gone to a Shure, a Sennheiser, an ACS, just about anybody in the market, a Grado, and bought them for a fraction of the cost. So to put this in perspective, you could have bought, say, Spotify and Sennheiser, the two leaders in their brand, while getting rid of competition, and spent maybe $4.5 billion, something like that. It's a very strange purchase.
But don't you think that buying Sennheiser wouldn't give Apple the immediate profit margins that it probably wants and has grown to expect? And then there is the expectation at Apple that you're just going to go out there and own mind share, even if it's not entirely owning quality.
Possibly, but Apple has more buying power than Beats. It's a bigger company than Beats. It has more cash flow than Beats. And until 18 months ago, Beats was just simply buying all of its product from Monster. You know, it was just an outsourced thing. There was no technical skill in what Beats was doing. It was just sending it out to somebody else and having it built. So really, Apple, it has a better brand name around the world than Beats does. So why doesn't it just buy Monster, make it direct, do its own product profit margins? It doesn't really need to do that unless, quite frankly, it has a serious cool problem.
Well, and the other part of it is, of course, that Beats owns 64% of the high-priced headphone market. Your point that it's all about branding would suggest that they would keep the brand indefinitely. Hopefully, they won't combine brands, call it iBeats. I think that would be a terrible brand. But it sounds to me like they would keep the Beats brand, keep the Beats logo, keep it all, and just sell it as if it were a different company. As for the music service, I would guess that they would not keep that branding, that they would take whatever there is that's there and use it as part of a relaunched Apple branded service. Does that make sense to you, or do you think they would keep the music service branding as well?
It makes sense to me. I mean, in terms of headphones, again, Apple could have got into this themselves a long, long time ago. I mean, there was a time when it wasn't cool to have red cables. It was cool to have white cables. They've missed the boat on that. Arguably, they're trying to fix it with Beats. Now, they've arguably missed the boat again, having to buy Beats to get into streaming. So this feels not so much like a typical Apple purchase, which is, buy all sorts of cool technology that we don't have. It feels more like a Microsoft purchase, which is we missed something in the market and we're trying to buy our way back in.
Now, Casey Newton, there are reports this morning that music mogul Jimmy Iovine, who's the other partner besides Dr. Dre in the Beats company, is going to be working for Apple, going to be leaving some of the companies that he's working at now and becoming some kind of special advisor to Tim Cook. First of all, is there any confirmation of that rumor? And secondly, is that part of this acquisition? Is this partly an acqui-hire to get Jimmy Iovine, of all people, into Apple?
That's been reported several places. It's not something that we ourselves have confirmed. I think it's totally foreseeable that Jimmy Iovine could come into Apple in some kind of advisor role. He was close with Steve Jobs and kind of has a long relationship with the company. But it's less clear to me what Jimmy Iovine himself would be bringing to Apple. The most credible suggestion I've seen is that given his long history as a record executive, he could help Apple sort of improve the deals that it already has for some of its existing products like iTunes Radio. So I think that there's some work that could be done there. But I think it's probably generally overstated that that this is a $3 billion acqui-hire. Like, let's keep in mind that Beats was making more than $1 billion a year in revenue. They're only being bought for $3 billion roughly. So that's a pretty low multiple in the world of tech when you're buying a company for 3 times its revenue. So I really think that the core of this, it's kind of 2 birds with 1 stone. You get premium hardware that you can sell at a high margin, and you get the foundations for a new streaming service, which the writing is on the wall. That's the way that people are going to be listening to music in the future.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Casey, actually. And I think that if anything, the acqui-hire part of this is just for the relationship with labels. Apple makes more and more of its money through content, and having that relationship, whoa, my lights went out. Having that relationship in LA is going to be really important.